Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge, or in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara Riska, life coach, wife, and the mother of 4 incredible and unique kids. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I completely lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and grace that once felt so completely lacking. I started the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves up against what feels impossible. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle the dreams that you hold impossible now. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you're a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Well, hello and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. I was just talking to a friend last night and he was asking about my podcast and said, how many episodes do you have now? I said, I think I'm on 36 if I am right, something right around there. And he was just acknowledging that accomplishment. And I was also thinking, wow, that's really cool. Thank you for being with me if you've been here before. Especially, I want to shout out to the listeners over in Hugh, Ohio. I see you. I'm so glad you're here. So the funny thing is, the podcast platform that I use tells me where my listeners are listening from. And there are dramatically more people. Like Hugh, Ohio is knocking it out of the park if we were competing on listening. Close following to Columbus, Ohio. So I see you guys as well. But I just wanted to give a special shout out. And if you are listening from Hugh, Ohio, I want to hear from you. Send me a quick message on either email, available on my show notes, or via the Instagram, because I think that'd be really fun. And apparently, I'm wondering if you guys are all friends or if we need to create a meetup because you don't know each other yet. Either way would be so fun. Anyhow, if you are not from Hugh, Ohio, and you are a new listener, welcome from wherever you are. I mentioned hopefully in the last episode that came out, if I did this right, that I was going to be doing a little different kind of series coming up. So this episode and the next 2 episodes, not released one after another, I'm going to probably have something in between there, are going to be around the idea of habits. Now, if you're like me, you think of habits, you think of working harder. And I'm still wrapping my brain around this because I'm so habituated in thinking about working harder that my brain still automatically goes to having to be self-disciplined and working hard to be somebody that has good habits. I want to first give credit where credit is due. The vast majority of the content that I'm sharing in the next 3 episodes is directly taken from the book that James Clear published back in 2018 called Atomic Habits. I highly recommend it. This is really just a good sampling and overview. I am going to be intentional about giving opportunities to apply the work because I think it's really easy to read a book or listen to a podcast, or in my case, I listened to his book on audio. And then to think, well, that's a really nice idea. I should do that. And then never have it impact your life. So let's be intentional, ladies, about having this be something that impacts and we apply. I'm going to actually create a download that you can download it after this episode so that you can easily apply some of the information that I'm telling you. And it's really, the idea here is let's have some fun with this. Let's not make this be hard or complicated. Let's just have a little bit of fun together, especially the ladies over there in Hugh. I hope I'm saying it right. Hough, right? Let's talk about habits. The first part of this book was the part that I was totally geeking out over. James talks about how habits shape our identity. Now, to give you a little bit of background, my training is as an ontological coach. Now, that's just a very big fancy word for a coach who really listens and looks for who we're being about something, aka identity, and looks how to shift out of that whatever being is not really working for us and shifting into a more intentional, more desirable being. And so as I'm reading the first part of his book, I'm just like googly eyes over the way that he has connected our identity to our habits. So he gives a visual of 2 different ways we can approach something. One would start with an outcome. He gives a little picture of a circle. On the outer part of the circle, there's the outcome. This is the kind of the goal, the thing that you desire to do. Then on the inner next ring, there would be process. This is kind of how you're going to do it. And on the innermost core of this diagram is identity. And he describes identity, which I totally align with, as beliefs, worldview, self-image, judgments about you, yourself, or others. And so he talks about this circle of 2 different ways of approaching something and having identity in the core, driving the process and the outcome as the strongest way, versus having it come from just looking at the outcome, what I want to do. The outcome might be lose 5 pounds. The process might be I'm going to eat a salad every day. And then, yes, eventually your identity will shift. But if we start at the outcome level, usually what happens is we get tired because we're working really hard. We're just trying to change the last dangling thing out there and not really getting to the core of what's driving the behavior from the beginning. So really it's looking at identity-based habits versus outcome-based habits. So an outcome is focusing on what you want to achieve. Let's say lose 50 pounds. Versus focusing on who you want to be. Let's say a person who is healthy. So those are the 2 differences. The first one is an outcome, lose 50 pounds. The latter one is an identity. And so you could see how they're obviously related. A person who is healthy may have an outcome, if that's their intended result, of losing 50 pounds or 5 pounds or whatever. But one you can see is so much stronger than the other. A person who is healthy. Can you imagine how much more that impacts you versus just trying to work really hard and lose 50 pounds? So let's imagine two moms who parent a child with special needs, because that's why we're all here. And let's think about two of those ladies trying to feel less overwhelmed. Because, one says, I'm trying to be less overwhelmed. The other says, I'm not a person who is overwhelmed. Do you see the difference there? That's crazy to me how it's so simple. It's so actually very subtle. But the first one is that outcome-based. They're trying to be somebody, right? This is not bad. This is wonderful. They're trying to be someone that's less overwhelmed. So they're going to probably be taking different actions to try to be less overwhelmed. They're hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. This is the most critical part. I want you to hear that again. They're trying to change the outcome. Yay, gold star, happy face sticker. Yet they're not changing the beliefs that created the behavior that created the outcome. So again, we're going to go to the core of the circle and really look at the identity, aka who we are being. So that second one, I am not a person who is overwhelmed, signals a shift in identity. They no longer identify as somebody who is overwhelmed. James gives the example of a smoker. So somebody can say, I'm trying to quit smoking, or I'm trying to quit smoking. Yet they are trying, so therefore they still believe that they are a smoker, versus somebody that says, I'm not a smoker. Now, who do you think is less likely to not smoke? That person who's just trying is going to get tired, and they're going to want to have that shift in experience and have that nicotine hit. They are. It's like me and cheese. I have not shifted my identity in the area of being somebody that doesn't eat a lot of cheese. Okay. Focus. So most people don't think of an identity when they think about a goal. This is not necessarily taught. We're thinking about a goal, and then we think about what do you have to do that goal, and we're going to work really hard, and then we're going to fail. This is like New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose 5 pounds. And then come January 18th, and you're like, I didn't really feel like doing that much. So you just set out on improvement. You don't set out on actually identity change. Some people are very successful in actually achieving that goal. That's awesome. But what's interesting is likely after they achieve that goal. So I'm going to use the example of somebody that runs a marathon. They run that race, and then they stop running because they accomplished their goal. This happens all the time because their goal was to run the race. Their goal was not to become a runner. And so we can look at this actually he gives several examples of goals versus actually becoming that I think is nice to look at. So one of his is, the goal is not to read a book. It's to become a reader. The goal is not to exercise. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument. The goal is to become a musician. And for us moms, I wrote one. The goal is not to be happy for a moment. The goal is to become a mom who is happy. And we could create a sentence in that case for any of the states of being that we desire: to become a leader, to become an advocate, to become secure. And interestingly enough, we have a lot of identities that we don't question. They occur for us as fact in life. Tell me what you identify with. I'm always late. I have no self-control or discipline. I am just not a patient person. I'm a horrible mom. I am not good at, you fill in the blank. Say out loud with me. What comes to your mind when you say, I am not good at blank? So those are all examples of identities that you have taken on and you are considering as fact, likely. Because we would know this to be true if you are actually always late or frequently late, or if you don't have discipline, or if you yell at your kids all the time. I'm not saying that's a horrible mom if you do that, but I don't know that we all feel very good when we yell at our kids. So we're going to go with that. So there's 2 steps to identity change. One, it's, I think, starting out the baseline is that you were not born with these preset of beliefs. You've learned everything that you've learned. Now, I want you to know this is good news, that you have learned everything that's running your identity now. Because everything is relearnable. I want to put in something here that was helpful for me. So many moons ago, when I was doing my coach training, the idea of subconscious beliefs I became aware of them. That's funny. Get it? Anyhow. And it felt like what was the word? It felt so frustrating to me because they were subconscious. I felt like there were these invisible things that were out to get me, that were running the show, these subconscious beliefs. And that they were going to just always be there and pop up whenever they wanted to sabotage my life. And I really obviously put a lot of mental energy towards thinking about this. And the word subconscious and unconscious and non-conscious are all interchangeable. And I like the word, and this is something that James does point out in his book, non-conscious. Because for me, the only difference between non-conscious and conscious is like you just haven't opened the door yet. Like you just haven't discovered it. You haven't become aware of it yet. And that the possibility of making a non-conscious thought a conscious thought is totally possible. They're not like the subconscious for me. It just made me think like they're lurking below the water and then they're going to it's like me paddling out in the ocean. Like at any moment, a shark could bite my leg off. It felt like that with these subconscious thoughts. Like at any moment, they could surface. They could destroy everything. Whereas the word non-conscious to me just makes me think, it makes me feel more like I have the capacity to make them conscious. Awareness. Okay? So becoming aware of a non-conscious thought makes it a conscious thought. So easy, right? Not lurking shark under the water going to eat you at any point. So to reiterate, our identity is who we're being over and over. I like to also say it's who you're practicing being over and over. That's your identity. And remember, your identity drives everything. If you wake up and help your kids every day with meds and foods and getting on their braces and getting on their AFOs and brushing their hair, it's just evidence or practice that you're a mom, or in our case, you're a special needs mom. The identity that you have now, that you would say, this is who I am, you believe this because you have proof. Now, this proof can be actual factual evidence, like in the case of if you're a mom, you could say, I'm a mom because I have 4 kids. Or if one of your identity is wife, you could say, well, I have a marriage license, so I'm a wife. You could also have this identity because you could say, well, I share everything with my husband. We always help each other. We always have each other's back. That could be part of the evidence, and that might even be evidence that you're a good wife. All the identities that you have now, you have some proof or evidence for why you believe that. So if you want a new identity, you'll need to create more evidence for yourself to believe this. It's almost, I want you guys to picture a scale. On one side is the identity that you hold now. Let's say that you are overwhelmed. And that scale on the other side is, let's say, the opposite, just for fun. You are calm, collect, not overwhelmed. And so right now, your scale for the reasons why you're overwhelmed is just heavier. So the idea here, the how behind this, is to actually compile a set of evidence and beliefs, and this is what we can do intentionally, to tip the scale in the other direction. What James says in his book is every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. So this new identity, you'll create more evidence for yourself to believe it. This can happen by telling yourself a different story and taking certain actions and using them to reinforce. There's this very clear feedback loop that our actions don't necessarily drive our identity, like they don't create our identity or our thoughts, but they can influence them. We can then use our actions for our evidence because our brain is always trying to predict, and it's always trying to be right. And so it doesn't want to be wrong about who you are. And so that's why it pulls this evidence from the past on who you are. So it can figure out, okay, how are you going to do these things? So again, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Each time you don't yell at your kids, you are a patient mom. Each time you make a healthy meal plan, you are healthy and organized. Each time you play tennis, you are a fun, active person. Each time you schedule a weekend away with your girlfriends, you are a person who is connected and in community. So this interestingly can work in the opposite direction too. Each time you yell at your kids, you are out of control mom. Each time you overeat, you are weak and indulgent. Remember how I said there's 2 steps to your change in identity? First is to decide the type of person you want to be. So easy, right? Just decide. That's the decision. The second part is to prove it to yourself with small wins. Remember how I just said, we like to be right. We like to be able to predict. So with very small wins, this is why James named his book Atomic Habits, because atoms are very small. Small wins would be practice one moment at a time. And I love this part because it points to the ease of something. This is not perfection. This is not like all of a sudden we're going to wake up at 5:30 on the dot every morning and we won't miss a morning, and just really that rigidity and that like rigor. This is practicing one morning, waking up at 5:30, one moment at a time. One vote. That's one vote. I am a morning person. Who is the type of person who you want to be? Maybe confident. I hear that a lot from you guys. Secure, safe, capable, satisfied. Maybe I am the kind of mom who stands up for my child. I'm the kind of person who trusts her gut more than doctors or other professionals. I'm the kind of wife who always has my husband's back. I'm the kind of person who doesn't care what others think, especially when they see or watch my child. So from identify who you want to be, then the next step is, what would this type of person do? What would a mom who stands up for a child say, not say, do? Maybe it's they would email the school, ask a question about something. Maybe they'd make a demand. Maybe they don't email. There's no prescription for exactly what to do. This is where you really just get to lean into like your knowing. When you identify who you want to be, it's so fun when I'm working with women on figuring this out, because immediately they know exactly what to do. One of the lies that we tell ourselves is, I don't know how. It happens all the time. And it's really fun to see at my clients' I don't know how meter go down as we work together. Like some of them start saying it all the time. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know how. That is their identity. And so, of course, I bring it to their awareness. And it still happens, of course. But if we were to count the amount of times that comes up later in an engagement, in a relationship, as I work with someone, we would see a dramatic shift. And it's really fun. And then they catch themselves, I'm saying it, I don't know how. So in summary, the importance isn't in achieving the goal or result. It's about who you are becoming. And as we wrap up, I want to just also put in some intention around why did I choose this book about habits? Because habits make it easier for our brains. I'm all about easy from an intentional place. From my non-intentional place, I'm all about hard and complicated. When we make things easy, our brain doesn't have to wonder or deliberate every decision. It just gets to automatically know what to do. For example, on Friday nights, we always have pizza, usually beer. I never have to wonder what I'm cooking for dinner on Friday night. Still have not figured out the other 6 days, but I've got Friday night figured out. So if you're like a lot of us and you think of habits and you think of working harder, being more disciplined, more self-controlled, stronger, all those things, good news is you have it exactly wrong. In the coming episodes, I'm going to share a lot more about this. I want to wrap up with one last, actually, this is the part that's going to be the most applicable. Although in the worksheet that I have for you, I'm going to give you the opportunity of identifying who you want to become. And so that's going to be the first part, who you want to become, and you're going to identify the identity that you want to become. And then you're going to identify, well, what would that person do, not do or say? And then we're going to use one of the tools that James lays out, and I love it. It's called an implementation intention. The whole concept that small is meaningful. I want to put this in before I tell you the actual tool. Improving 1% each day for a year will result in 37 times better by the end of the year. That is mind-blowing. So just like a tidge, a taste, a sprinkle, a dash better in anything will result, if you do that over and over and over again, just small. It doesn't have to be 10% the next day. Every day, 1%. It's not, then you don't have to work up to 20%. It's just 1%. It always stays 1%. Then at the end of the year, 37 times better. So apply this to whatever you desire. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your emotional well-being. Maybe it's your contentedness. I guess that's the same as, maybe it's how you feel about your life, 1% better. So the compounding effect of this is so fun to look at. I know we're getting a little bit long here, but I'm going to put it in here because I think this is the best picture. When you think about compounding, so again, when most of us think about changing something or a habit, we think, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And then what happens is we try something because we're trying from the action base first, the behavior, aka the outcome. And we do it for a little bit. Maybe we last like 3-5 days. Maybe it's only just like one day. And then we don't see an impactful enough change or result, and we quit. And the picture James gives that is brilliant is picturing an ice cube in a room. And let's say that room is 27 degrees. And then that room changes to 28 degrees. And you're like, well, nothing's happened to the ice cube. Like, it's not changing. Okay, 29 degrees, 30 degrees, 31 degrees. Still no visible change. Nothing's happening. But yet we can't deny that there's something very significant changing. The temperature is changing. It's not until that 32 degrees that you see any significant change. And that emphasis on the C is really obviously where I want to focus on, because that's when we get to see something different. That's when we see a shift. That's when we see this, like, I mean, I'm going to use an example because it's just so clear, like the scale changing. That one specific shift unlocked the change in result. And so something like weight is so tangible, we can see it. It's a little harder when we're looking at something around who we're being as far as an experience in life. And that is the focus, actually, that most of my clients want. Yes, they want to start exercising. And yes, they want to have maybe some different health outcomes. But most of it is they want to feel confident when they're around their family. When their family doesn't understand the diagnosis of their child, they want to feel secure, not judged, not hiding. And so that's where this 1% I think is so effective, because if you're focusing on being 1% more, let's just say joyful, I think it makes it an accessible, something that you're willing to try to implement into your life. I'm going to give you that implementation intention. Okay, the implementation intention is a way of getting so specific about something because your brain avoids anything that it feels uncertain. And so something like, I'm going to exercise 3 times a week, it sounds like, oh my gosh, okay, like it's clear you're going to exercise 3 times a week, but that is the most opposite of clear that one could say. And actually, somebody I'm working with just shifted from saying that for 10 years that she's going to exercise, and her mind was like 3 times a week. How many times did she exercise? Basically never. Okay, so what we did though is we got so specific. The implementation intention gets clear about the exact behavior, and it decides a time and a location that behavior will take place. So it's I will behavior at time in location. So the science behind this is that people who make a specific plan for when and where they will perform a new habit, they're just more likely to follow through. And when we go next week into the details of what James lays out as what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change, we'll get into more details about this. But I want you to apply this part today because it's so simple. Let's use this for working out. I will ride my bike for 30 minutes at 10 o'clock in my neighborhood on Tuesday. So there's no vagueness around this. I know exactly what I'm going to do, how long I'm going to do it, where, when. Even you could say, and I'm going to wear my black bike shorts. I don't know. Do you see how different that is than saying I'm going to exercise? Even saying I'm going to exercise on Tuesday. I know when I leave it vague, I'm like, I'll just do it a little bit later. I'll just do it a little bit later. So anyhow, let's wrap this episode on up. And again, I'm going to make a little downloadable, very easy thing for you so that you can download a little worksheet. I mean, super simple. Let's say it'll take 5 minutes. Maybe if you want to spend extra time, get extra credit, work for that A. Just kidding. You can spend 10 minutes on it. But basically the idea is just identifying one way of being that you want to become, and then creating some intentionality around it, actually implementing something that feels super fun, light, easy. And then what I thought would be fun is that as we move through the episodes, we can check back on that intention of who you want to become and apply the 4 laws to it to really solidify it, to really look at it from all the different angles. And essentially, it's the difference between swimming upstream and like swimming downstream, floating down a river. We unknowingly have been swimming upstream in certain areas, and it's like we think we might just be weak or unable to do something, but we just haven't been using a good system. And I love this. It gives me access to thinking, oh, it doesn't have to be hard. And like I joked earlier, my automatic brain every day is like, you know what? This is going to be really hard. You've got to work really hard. That's just the automatic story that, I don't know, maybe it'll stick around forever, but I'm very intentional around rewriting it. Okay, let's wrap her on up. As we wrap up, all my ladies over there in Hugh, I still see you. I want to make sure that you know about the group that is launching now. We're launching now. And so I'm still leaving it open because there's been a lot of people that haven't been able to get into the conversation with me to see if the group is right for them. So I want to make sure everybody that is interested for this next group has the opportunity to have that conversation. The group coaching program still has no name. I am trying to think of a name that's not super corny, but yet is also like tells you what the group's about. So far, all I've come up with is the Special Needs Mom Club. I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe. The idea here, though, is that in community, as we women, we special needs mamas, look at who we're being and decide who we want to become together through the reflections that you get in coaching. So in coaching, the whole point is becoming aware, specifically becoming aware of who we're being that we might not have realized. And that awareness gives us the opportunity to then implement something new. It's so easy. And in these communities that we're creating, we're having the conversations together. So creating relationship, connection, and also this awareness where we're all moving forward together. So it's fun. You have support. You have people cheering you on and celebrating your wins and being with you in your hardships. The idea is that we do this together, that we decide we are becoming somebody who does not feel alone, who is not alone. They're in community. And so that's what this group is designed around. All you have to do to inquire is reach out to me on Instagram or on the show notes. There's easy links. You just click on them. You're super clever. I don't have to explain it. So take that step. Have that be maybe one of your implementations. Also, I'll have the link to the little worksheet that I'm creating for you on the show notes. So just click on those. You probably have to do an email to download it, and then easy peasy, you're on your way. Thank you so much for being with me today. It is my pleasure to host this podcast for you. See you next week. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.